What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forecast. We are your connection to the who's who in the game of golf. We hope you'll laugh, learn how to win and grow your golf IQ with us here on the Forecast. I'm your host, Allen Burton, Director of Instruction for the Allen Burton Golf Academy at Lake Hickory Country Club in beautiful Hickory, North Carolina. I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in. You can find us on themesh.tv and all of your favorite podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. Be sure to check out all the other shows on themesh.tv, all produced right here in Western North Carolina. Advertising on the Mesh Podcast Network is a great low-cost way to reach a target audience. For more information on advertising on this show or other shows on the Mesh Network, you can send us an email at info@themesh.tv or by visiting the Mesh website at www.themesh.tv and clicking the Advertise button. I'm very honored today to be joined by our guest for this show, a good friend of mine, and I haven't spoke to in a long time, so I'm looking forward to this conversation with a very intelligent young man. This fella is Preston Combs. He is currently in Santa Barbara, California, working with the great Don out in Santa Barbara. I believe it's Twin Lakes Golf Club there in Santa Barbara. Is that correct, Preston?
Twin Lakes Golf Course, affectionately known as Twin Lakes National Resort and Spa, depending on who you talk to.
Love it, man. Love it. It's a beautiful area out there, man. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thanks for spending a little time with us, buddy. It's good to catch up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Gosh, I'm sorry I missed you at the PGA show this year. You know, the dinner that we always get together for down there is always kind of the staple event. And great to finally have some time to catch up here for a little bit and talk golf and putting and, gosh, anything else that probably comes up. I want to probably pester you about guitar, this, that, and the other thing at some point, too.
Absolutely, man. Hey, listen, I missed the show this year. It's the first time I've missed a PGA show in, gosh, probably 10 years. And your event is one of the biggest that I look forward to. We get a bunch of our friends who all instruct golf together for a nice Japanese dinner, some drinks, some sushi. The conversations that go on at that table are just incredible. And, I can't thank you enough for rallying that event. It's a great honor to get an invite to it because it is a limited audience. But, wow, what a group, man.
Boy, yeah, that dinner started off originally as, in order to be invited, I had to have, you would have had to have visited my property or I yours, or I stayed at your house in some capacity. And, and it's amazing, I kind of look around the room and I did my opening speech at the dinner this year. And I said, hey, can I get a quick show of hands here if I've been to your property or stayed at your house? And like the whole room goes up and it's like, how about if I stayed at your house? And a few hands go down. And then I look over at Don and I said, Don Parsons, my boss, and it was at the show this year. And I said, and raise your hand up still if I'm still staying at your house. And he like stood up and was like,
he's adopted you, man. You're easy to live with, so that's fine. I'm sure that's why so many.
I like to think so. As long as they keep doing dishes and taking out the trash, I can probably stay put here for a little bit. But it's been awesome relationship, tons of information, mentorship, guidance. There's so much more to this golf coaching thing beyond the coaching. And for me to learn from arguably one of the best in the world at managing the business aspect, something that I know a lot of assistant pros, other coaches sometimes struggle with, to have the look under the hood as to how things work on the finances and the programming side of things, and finding ways to make sure that your productivity isn't solely based on how many hours you stand out on the lesson tee. Truly a tremendous opportunity. And while, an undertaking like that requires some energy to get off the ground, once it's up and running, it's truly an impressive and truly an impressive operation, and a chance to make sure that you maintain some sort of quality of life, something that I didn't have as an assistant golf pro when I first started, where it's a lot of long work weeks and early mornings and late nights. And now to have an opportunity to say, it's like, hey, there's a boundary here. It's a 12-month season in Santa Barbara. You can't crank 60 hours a week and expect to be worth anything after 5 or 6 months. So he's really instilled that, helped kind of shape my business around that model, and just truly an awesome experience. Can't say enough nice things about Don and the opportunity he's given me.
Well, my question to you, has Don taught you how to do any grilling? I mean, are you just doing the eating, or are you learning some grilling skills from Don
Oh,
too? 'Cause he's
looking
incredible.
over the shoulder at one of the best. Boy, if you want to get a good steak here, we've actually made the house a dot on Facebook called Corleone's, and if you ever come have dinner, you have to check in on the Facebook page. I told Don at some point we're going to have enough reviews on there where somebody's going to be looking for local restaurants, and they're going to say, "All right, we're going to go here." They're going to show up, and we got to roll out a dinner for them. So
You're gonna be listed on Yelp before you know it. That's awesome, man.
it's not if but when. So we're looking forward to having you out here at some point to throw down, talk about golf and stuff around the fire pit, and share an awesome meal.
Yeah, that looks like a great time, man. I'd love to do that. And I guess with watching your career and being just in awe of what you've done in such a short time. You're a young man, and everybody gives you such a hard time about looking younger than you really are. Clue us in on, what is the age now? How old is Preston Combs? That's the question of the day.
Depending on who you talk to, the number ranges between 14 and 45. If I wear pleated pants, it's closer to 45. I have officially eradicated those from my closet. And
you still
I went
got
out
an
for,
iron, though. You're still pressing your flat fronts.
No, I am not. Don said you need to stop that. I remember when I first moved in and I asked for an iron and an ironing board, and I got this look of, what is wrong with you? You're in your late 20s and you just asked for an iron. So
Yeah, man.
but
That's an
it's
impressive
funny.
skill, though.
We went out for my 31st birthday, and it was and was asked if you how did that go down? Don said it's his birthday and pointed to me, and the server said, "Oh, great, are you turning 21?"
For our listeners, it's a shame you can't see Preston, because he does look 20, 21 years old, and has forever. Yeah, some people thought he was 14 or 15. That's a blessing, my friend. Yeah.
Oh,
Embrace it.
absolutely. No complaints on my end. Don will still give me a hard time for acting like a child because I like Star Wars and NASCAR and for getting into
Yeah.
the Formula One side of things too. I'd fit right in North Carolina with my NASCAR asphyxiation.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And do you still have the car that you had? I guess it was a hot rod Chevy.
Oh
Still have
yeah, I got and still got the Camaro.
Camaro.
Trying to get things rolling to see. It's like, maybe when she hits 120,000 miles, drop a new engine in her. Just love the body style on that thing, man.
Yeah,
She's before they
absolutely.
changed the design to the Camaro to make it look like the Batmobile. I love the shape and how it captures the American muscle, and dropping a few extra cylinders under that hood might be a lot of fun.
Yeah, what's not to love? I mean, I had a Camaro in high school, and so I have a fondness for those older body styles of the Camaro, and yeah, a lot of fun memories there. Great cars, man.
What year did
So
you have?
I had a '77
There you
in
go.
high school. Yeah, my first real nice car. I mean, I started out like a lot of people with a $600 1971 Ford Pinto that had belonged to my grandmother. And then on a trip to a high school golf match, I was doing about 15 miles an hour tops. A high school classmate of mine was in a Jeep Wrangler and just head on collision with the Pinto, and it totaled the Pinto, and I think it did only a minor scratch and knocked the battery off the battery mount for the Jeep. So the Pinto got totaled, and that led to the acquisition of the Camaro. '77 black, had Krager mags. It was killer. It was a killer car. Had a good time with that car.
There you go.
But yeah, so that's the way it goes with cars, man. I know. With your career, let's take our listeners back a little bit. You've been into golf all your life, or where did this start, man? And how did this passion and love of the game. Where did it begin for you?
We got to go all the way back to when I was 6 months old with a spatula and a plastic ball, and on one hand and one leg, knocked a ball out the back door. And mom said, that kind of looks like golf. And she'd be familiar with it because my dad plays, my grandfather played, and going all the way back to my great grandmother played.
Cool.
Her name, Helen Webb Harris, and she founded the first golf club for Black women in America back in 1937, and they played out of Langston Golf Course just outside of Washington, D.C. And
Okay.
that, that was kind of gave me the impression as I was growing up and getting into high school that maybe it's no accident I did the junior golf, high school golf, and always had a passion for the game ever since I was a little kid. And since then, it's grown into a little bit of collegiate golf, and graduated a university with my Class A PGA membership, business degree as well, and always knew that I wanted to be in coaching in some capacity when it was evident I didn't get the information I needed in order to play. I always thought that there shouldn't be, in this day and age, a reason why somebody at least doesn't have access to the information to pursue the highest level. Not to say that everybody gets there, but it would have been nice to have enough information to say, at least I gave it a fair shake. It would have been cool to play a couple of years on PGA Tour Canada or Latin America, and even if it doesn't turn into anything, it would have been nice to have a legitimate shot at that type of experience for a little bit. So
Yeah.
I guess to this day, I'm in the coaching side, Alan, because for me, I don't want some young person to come to me at 13 or 14 years old and say, I want to play Division I collegiate golf and give this a go, and poor information be the reason why they don't get there. So maybe I carry that as a chip on my shoulder, but it always encourages me to pursue a higher level of excellence in everything I do, notably the putting side.
Yeah. So as a player, I mean, we probably want to let our listeners know you're a left-handed golfer. Have you always played left-handed? Did you start out left-handed as a young
Oh,
man?
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Backwards as can be. And
Yeah.
don't hold it against me.
No, we never do, man. Yeah, but I just wonder because a lot of times, finding left-handed equipment can be a challenge, or it used to be
Oh, it
more than
absolutely
maybe
was.
today.
Yeah,
But
gosh.
you overcame those hurdles.
Early 90s junior golf clubs, or I guess mid 90s junior golf clubs weren't really a thing, and then left-handed junior clubs certainly not a thing. But as far as putting goes, I learned to do it right-handed, yeah, just so I could try out a couple of different putters and see if I liked it, and
Mhm.
if I could get it in lefty, I would get it in left-handed. So
Yeah. So with that being said, now you're not playing with junior clubs now, though.
thankfully, no. My swing
Yeah.
speed's up just enough where I can work my way into the U.S. Kids Tour Series. No, just kidding.
That's funny. Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think as a coach, someone who has played competitive golf, there's obviously an advantage having played and played at a high level. But I think too, there's a lot of coaches now that they really haven't had a great competitive playing career, and they still not being an amazing coach. What do you think it takes to be the best coach? Do you feel like is it a playing skill that's required, or is it something else? What's your opinion?
Couple of different takes on that. I think from the skilled playing side, something that Don definitely brings to the table, having played at UCSB and being one of the top 50 amateurs in the country after he graduated, and winning the California State Amateur at Pebble Beach and playing competitively for a bit thereafter on some of the nationwide circuits. He he brings that experience level to the table of been there, I've seen it, I know what it takes to perform at that level for anybody that says they want to. He's blended that brilliantly with the knowledge and the technical aspect. The second idea that somebody could approach it from says I need to have a good sound understanding of how and why all these pieces work together. And then lastly, the communication side of things, being able to adapt to who's standing in front of you, something that I feel like I've spent a lot of time crafting and working towards to understand the person and how they might respond to information. The idea that we could say the same thing a half dozen different ways in order to get the message across. And for any young coach that's listening to this, there's no shortcutting the experience side of things. You're going to have to get your hands dirty, give a couple of lessons or two where you go, oof, I wish I had a mulligan there. But, you'll learn from those experiences. You say, I really should have taken the skill-based approach with so-and-so, or I should have pressed a little harder for the mechanics to be more sound before moving on for this particular person here. And eventually you start figuring those out, where the line is for accountability from the player side and from the coach side.
Yeah. It's always a challenge to get the player sometimes to buy into your vision for their improvement. As a coach, that mechanical improvements are going to be necessary maybe for someone, but is that player in front of you ready to go on that journey with you and realize your vision of improving those mechanics when, they want a simpler fix sometimes. That's the challenge, isn't it?
For sure. I think when you establishing the relationship is such a big part of where to from here. Anybody that comes to see me in Santa Barbara for a putting session, it's always a half-day session, especially on the first meeting, because I'm going to need close to 90 minutes to take a look at the visual look, the video side of things, collecting data on Sam Putt Lab, assessing the speed and the green reading skills, and being able to really peel back the layers for this person, because there's so much more to putting than distance and direction, which golf publications and the internet have led us to believe are the only two things that really matter in putting. And it's really a shame. And being part of the journey and venture under the guidance of mentors like David Orr and several others that have really helped me craft my coaching style and career, being able to shift that landscape is one of the things that I'd like to do and I'd like to pursue over the course of my career in order to make sure that better information is available to people.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we're dealing with these individuals in front of us, and their concepts sometimes are the real issue. They don't have a clear enough concept of what their intention is, or they have a poor concept of what their intention should be. And sometimes it's just our jobs to get in there and find out what computer programs they're running, before they try and execute something, and just figure out what is and is not, advantageous for them to be thinking. So let's talk a little bit about putting. So are you primarily putting now? Are you doing any full swing instruction for your better players or anyone? Tell us about your instructional mix right now. What is it comprised of?
Primarily putting. The brand is Preston's Putting for a reason, and it's Don's provided a tremendous opportunity for us to team up and offer a great experience for our coaching program clients, where they have one of the best in the world on the K-Vest and full swing side of things, and a rising star. And some people might say I'm already there in some capacity, but I'm always looking to pursue more and information and deliver a higher quality of putting coaching. And say it's one of the be able to say you've got two of the best in the same location. I mean, talk about a full experience where we can have all facets of your game addressed at a high level. That doesn't happen too often, in a partnership that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in today's world. I think we've seen coaching becoming more refined to specific skill categories, over the last 10 or 15 years for sure, where you take a profession such as golf instruction. You might consider it a very niche, profession in itself. Hey, I'm going to teach golf for a living. When I say that to folks here in Hickory, North Carolina, they look at me like, you do what? You can actually make a living teaching golf, in general. And I have to take on, obviously, every golfer that wants instruction and help them with whatever part of their game, needs to improve to stay in business, to actually make it a career or a business. But someone such as yourself who specializes in putting, that's a big step, and I commend you for making that dedication to that choice. You're gonna have a smaller client base, maybe not, and that's what you have to decide, isn't it, when you make that decision?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say that, because that's one point that often comes up a lot when people are asking, how in the world did you decide on a market like putting when it's such a niche market? And I'll go back to when the days when I was hanging out with you. It was I was an assistant pro up in New Jersey. I'd go make my way to Florida for the winter months and try to survive down there. But the best part of that trip, probably the drive to and from, where I had the opportunity to stop at places like yours and Jason Sutton's, and Andrew Rice was still at Berkeley Hall back at that
Mm-hmm.
point in time, and he allowed me to come out and shadow for the day. He brought me
Mm.
into his office after his last session and wanted to chat a little bit more about me, and his it was the wonderful South African accent. Just said, "So tell me more about Preston and why Preston Combs is going to be a great golf coach." And we chatted about that, and he posed a really important question that stuck with me to this day. And he says, who is your market and who are you advertising to? I was like, well, I have my website and working at this club, and I really think I can create a relationship with a lot of the members there. They seem to like me. And he just shakes his head and goes, no. I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh, here I've got one of the top instructors in the world. And he just shook his head and went, no. And he said, here's the thing, Preston. The world is your market. It's called the internet. And everything that you put out there allows anybody in the entire world to have access to you in some way. And you need to remember that. Here we are. Gosh, that's got to be maybe 2013 or 14. So here we are almost 10 years later. And that rings with such truth, as I have people that have come to see me from Korea, Malaysia, all over the country. People fly, came up. One gentleman flew up from Mexico. He's like, dude, I just saw you. I've seen you on Instagram. I've been following you. And just sheerly on the social media side of things, saw enough from that and from me to say, I'm going to jump on an airplane and fly from to another country, halfway around the world in some cases, to spend time with you and get information from you, because I genuinely believe you can help me.
Yeah,
So
that's that was
for that side of things, that really that resonates. That means a lot as far as the work that I've put in. So as far as, is putting a niche market? Absolutely. But positioning myself in such a way where people have access to me through online, can come to a destination like Santa Barbara, and being given the opportunity to travel all over the country and hopefully the world here at some point will really be a complete picture. And that conversation that day means the world to me.
Yeah, that was a very, very intelligent guy there, Andrew Rice, good friend of mine as well, and he's right. I mean, with today's marketing opportunity, anyone can reach out and connect with anyone through social media in particular, and it's free. I mean, that's what's been so powerful. It's probably connected more of the golf industry instructor base. I made a number of great friends myself through the social media world, and thankful for that. So it does allow you to reach new customers, new friends, new instructors to mentor or be mentored by. And so, yeah, it's a powerful tool if it's used correctly. So there's more than just Preston Combs and Don Parsons in Santa Barbara to come to. There's this great golf course and this new range that you've discussed with me. You're adding some amenities there at Twin Lakes Golf Course in the range. Talk about that some. Tell the listeners what's in store for them at your facility.
Yeah, we've taken the time to really upgrade our facility. As already probably the best range in Santa Barbara as far as the space and the grass mat option, and regularly keeping new golf balls in there, something that's always important to the player. We're taking the time to add Top Tracer range technology. For those of you that are familiar with Top Golf, it's the same technology that runs their facilities. And while we don't have the actual targets out on the range, that technology allows somebody to plunk down with their basket of balls at their stall, download a free mobile app, and the mobile app will actually track every golf ball hit from that spot. Gives you the ability to see how far the ball's going, launch angles, ball speeds, carry distances, You can even play games out there that we'll be setting up for our clients coming out for longest drive contest or close to the pin contest, and really taking the driving range experience from hitting balls into a field to something that's very interactive, and that's going to massively improve the entertainment value and hopefully open us up to a much larger market of players that all of a sudden might go, I kind of like it, that drive that went a little bit over 250 yards. Let me see if I can do that again, and maybe create that addiction where, boy, that was fun. Let's give it another go here and find better ways to do it more often. So very excited to have that open up here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, that's big news, and I think you're going to see that. I mean, you guys are on the front end of this movement, if you will, in our industry, where the technology that is available can be utilized to measure, everything a golfer's doing that's relative to their success. The golf shots going how far and how accurate, and launch angles and spin. These are things that the tour players have now embraced as extremely valuable to their progress and success out there playing golf for a living. And it's going to be something available at your range to the average golfer coming out. That's fantastic. I'm glad you guys are doing that.
Oh yeah, likewise. I mean, just it's an investment in our guests that take the time to come see us, and an effort from Twin Lakes to really deliver a high end level of golfing experience, something that otherwise 10, 15 years ago, I mean, gosh, stuff like that's not even on the radar. No pun intended. Right. Radar technology just coming out probably around that time, where it was starting to find itself into the coaching market. Now, here we are looking at trying to deliver that experience on a daily basis.
Yeah, I can attest to one fact, and that is when I purchased the TrackMan technology for my own instruction. It was a big investment. It was close to $25,000 for me to invest into that technology. And to be honest, after using it for, I don't know, the first couple of years, I kind of realized that, well, I bought it for me. I didn't really make an investment that was going to radically change how many golf lessons I was able to give. People were coming to me because of me. They didn't necessarily come to me because of TrackMan. I may have had a few that came, hey, I heard you had a TrackMan. I want to get on a TrackMan. Maybe a few. But that just is a testament to you guys and doing your business. You want that technology there. You're willing to invest in it. And there'll be some golfers that show up and like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. They didn't come there knowing it was there. They just came to hit some balls. And they're going to come there knowing now that you care more about them because you're giving them this really valuable data. And it's very expensive for you guys to install this. So your customer needs to know what kind of investment they're being made, into your business there. That's fantastic. It's not easy to do.
It'll be great for the data junkies to have more information about how their practice session went. If they're looking to improve their distance control with wedges, then they have an opportunity to do that. And for the recreational golfer, still be able to come out and again, just elevate the experience beyond just hitting balls into a field. It's like, okay, cool. I get to see how far it goes or how fast it got out of the stall here. And that's information that makes you go, man, that's far more enjoyable than just getting my basket of 80 golf balls and hitting them out there and say, okay, cool. Now what? So we're pretty stoked for that.
Yeah. And so not only do you have that on your range, but I know your putting studio is just simply world class. Let's tell the listeners what they could expect if they were to fly into Santa Barbara and spend a half day or a full day or several days with you there and work on their putting. What are some of the amenities in the Preston Combs putting studio world that you have access to now?
I think most clients that are taking the time to fly in and come see me are going down the route of the training camp, where we have an opportunity to spend a full weekend together and for the Santa Barbara experience, where they'll come in, we'll run some diagnostics with some great technology, notably through the guys at Science and Emotion Sports, and or abbreviated SAM Sports, and they have a product called Putt Lab that allows me to measure anything and everything I could imagine about how the putter moves during the stroke. And their latest addition for the technology side of things called SAM Ball Tracker, where an overhead camera system is actually measuring and collecting data about how the golf ball is traveling to the cup. So talk about being able to offer a complete experience of what are we looking at for our stroke pattern on flat putts, breaking putts, being able to shape that message for how the ball's getting to the cup on the breaking putts, and show somebody, hey, here's a better strategy for green reading or a better strategy for speed, and really being able to be very succinct with the message of how and why a ball missed and the recognition of what that player can do differently. So we'll collect data on that front. We'll go play golf on that training camp experience, because there's nothing like being able to see how players perform out on the golf course. And then meals are included, and we do day 2 in the studio, tearing stuff down, putting it back together with a better mousetrap, and making sure the engines are hitting on all 12 cylinders, and ensuring that there's a plan in place for when you leave here. Here are the things you need to be doing and working towards in order to create, develop, and own your putting.
Yeah, that's a fantastic opportunity. If golfers have any inclination to improve their putting, that's where they need to go. They need to come see Preston Combs and spend a little time with him out in Santa Barbara. You know, with what you see, you're dealing with all skill levels, I would assume, as the player does get better, and maybe the more competitive player, and they want to refine their putting skills. I find with my clients, it's always a difficult thing for them to individually diagnose themselves. They're quick to change putters, or they're quick to change their stroke in terms of getting a different result. Let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit of some of the things you might do for a player. And I know it's going to be an expansive conversation, but talk about your approach with taking someone. Let's say they're a single-digit golfer. They're trying to make it to the higher level as an amateur, and you're going to start working with their putting, and they don't even know which putter they should be using. So is that where you start? Is it a putter fitting that becomes the first step, or what are your thoughts?
Alan, I think it's going to go back to better understanding the skills and how and why a ball goes in, and the recognition that in my free book, 3 Things to Know, we identify read, speed, and direction as our main components for how and why the ball is going in, and what we're going to be able to do in order to improve those skill sets. And that's regardless of the ability level, right? I mean, even if you have a beginner golfer or a single digit, they're deficient in one of those skills that directly influences whether or not they can make a putt. The conversation might be different as far as how deep into the mechanics we decide to discuss things, or if we just work on skill acquisition in the early stages for a 20 handicap. But it ultimately, we're looking for that very clear message of, if I do these things here, this list of 4 or 5 steps, I'm going to see improvement. And that'll happen across the board. As far as what area, or when somebody asks me, what are we going to do during our weekend session or our half day or full day session? What are we going to work on? The answer is really, I don't know. I've got to look. I got to see what we're looking at on the data side of things. I will say that very few players walk in with a putter that is exactly right. Sometimes it's close enough where I don't necessarily want to change or address it in some way. But I think at the end of the day here, we're looking at, the stick needs to be right. It needs to be the right length, especially the right weight. That's a whole big can of worms in and of itself, making sure the thing's not too heavy, which seems to be the way the market is headed. And then ensuring that we have the mechanics in place so that the right stick actually works too. So a lot of pieces, it's a messy Rubik's Cube of twists and turns to try to get the picture to turn out the way we want. But that's why I do what I do, right? Every person's different, and it's always a venture and a challenge.
Yeah, it's an exciting change every day. You're dealing with something unique to that individual. And, like you said, it's the 3 skills of line, read, and speed, and the combination of how those skills interact and work amongst themselves. It's a difficult challenge for some golfers to know out of the 3 which one is the bigger deficiency, and that's our job as coaches to help them, discover that. So talk a little bit about speed control with us, and tell the golfers your thoughts on what gives a player that ability to roll a ball with the proper energy so that it travels a proper distance on a given putt? What are some of the things that they're going to need to be able to do?
They first need to have an understanding of our two major pieces that control how far the golf ball goes. Those are going to be the size of the stroke, how big or small, and the tempo, how fast or slow the putter's traveling. Those two things put together give us our speed component and how far that ball is actually going to travel. Yes, there's other stuff for the coaches or the more advanced players listening, like acceleration, delivered loft, impact location, the insert on the putter influencing smash factor. Yes, there are other things, but it would be a huge disservice to somebody that struggles with the speed and three putts a lot to say that all they need to do is work on hitting the ball in the center of the face, and that's why they're coming up 5 feet short and 10 feet by on 30-foot putts. You probably have a bigger fish to fry, because hitting it solidly versus not hitting it solidly won't give you that big variance and such deviation in the end result. So establishing some framework and recognizing too that this idea of speed control, you're not really in control of some of these things, right? When you start looking at some of those pieces that I just mentioned that influence how far the ball goes, you're looking more along the lines of, I want to be good at the key concepts, my size, my tempo, and recognize that I need to manage my speed. I need to manage my size and to manage my tempo, that it's not as exacting as people want it to be. I tell some players that we're not engineering a stroke so that I go 12 inches back, 12 inches through at this putter head speed on this stimp green goes 11 feet, 12 inches.
Right.
That 11 feet, 12 inches, that's brilliant. I clearly need another coffee here. You really just looking at that going, we don't want to engineer this to the point where it's so exacting, because you don't get that luxury on the golf course. You don't get perfectly flat. You have changing slope, changing green speeds. Every green to green is just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's start looking at this as the artistry side of things. I need an awareness of how far away the cup is. Are we at about 10 feet, about 15 feet? Do we have some reference points in place for how big or small we're making the stroke? And do we have enough of an understanding of our tempo and what our normal speed is? Some people get on fast greens, they try to move it slowly, and on slow greens, they try to hit it harder. And I think that's a really detrimental approach. So let's go with the art side of things, ART, awareness, reference, and tempo. And you can take that one to the bank, because if you can understand that speed's an art and work through those steps, we can open up tons of doors for how skillful a player can become with their putter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's just not understood. I mean, when you ask someone after hitting a putt that was 5 feet short of the hole, you say, tell me why the putt's short. And they say, well, I didn't hit it hard enough. And then when one goes 5 feet by, they always say, well, I hit it too hard. And so that's their understanding. I mean, that's where they start as a golfer, and you want to take them down a little deeper in understanding the mechanics of their distance control. That's what's necessary, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's the recognition that if I want to get better, I need to have some understanding of those pieces. I need to have that stuff in place in order to make some kind of improvement here. And if I can do that, then that might well be all somebody needs in order to get better. And said, hey, Preston, I saw that video on the size and tempo and a way to set those baseline reference points, and my putting got better. Thank you so much. And that could be the extent of the relationship. Somebody might see a free video and say, wow, that was excellent, and my putting's better, and that's all they need. That's all they wish to pursue. If they wanted to get better, there's always more. There's always, how can I do it more often? What are the tolerances? What's good enough? And you can take the same exercise with a touring professional and a 20 handicap and just recognize that there are different challenge points and performance levels that we would like to achieve. There's the message might be said a little bit differently when I'm having that size and tempo discussion with a tour pro versus someone in our group coaching program here that's just looking to, 3 putt once around instead of 6 times around.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with the average high handicapper, do you feel like distance control is generally their biggest deficiency, or do you Do you see it as being starting a putt on a somewhat consistent line as being a bigger challenge?
The speed side of things. Listen, if
Yeah.
somebody's three putting, it's not because they hit a 20-footer 6 feet left or 6 feet right. If they hit that 20-footer 6 feet by, or they come up 6 feet short, and it goes back to the speed side of things. And if they could just manage that component to get the ball to stop near-ish by, even if it's not such a great stroke, if we could just keep it inside of 2.5 feet on the mistakes, then we'd be much better off, right? So
Yeah.
I won't sell them the bill of goods that, oh, you can just switch putters and make everything or something, or, get
Right.
good at green reading and you'll be world's best putter or anything like that. There's a healthy dose of reality when I'm talking with somebody, but,
Oh yeah.
it's just letting them know that, like, if you do this right here, you'll be better off. And, speed is at the core of my putting tree and right and smack in the center, because it's the trunk, it's the main skill here. And if I can do that well, then we can kind of figure out all the other stuff along the way. And sometimes if you get the speed stuff right, especially the tempo, maybe the direction side of things gets a little bit better too.
Absolutely. So when you're trying to converse with the client about the concept of timing or tempo or rhythm in their stroke, do you use all those words interchangeably yourself as a coach? Do you see tempo, timing, and rhythm as all meaning the same thing when you're talking about putting?
I usually just leave the discussion at tempo, uh, just because it tends to muddy the water if you want to start getting into the technical definitions for tempo versus rhythm versus timing. Everybody's got there's so many other definitions out there, and some right, some wrong. I'd rather just players just leave it
Yeah.
at tempo. How fast or
Yeah.
slow? Do we move it
Right.
like Brant Snedeker? Do we move it like Brad Faxon? Do we move it like Lauren Roberts? It's
Sure.
like, okay, slow, medium, fast, and at some point, that's all we need to process if we're going to
Yeah.
better manage the tempo. It doesn't need to be any deeper a discussion than that. If I'm chatting with another coach, yes, we can talk about the technical definitions of it, but that's good information to have, not necessarily something that we're going to teach our weekend golfers. I think we sometimes try to overeducate them, and when you can, I think if you have a good sound understanding of all the mechanical pieces and how deep the rabbit hole goes, it just allows you to make the message very clear and, as far as they're concerned, simple. People like
Mm-hmm.
simple, but you can't give them simple without a very complete understanding of how you work your way back to that.
Yeah, that's important in coaching. Is the message can be oversimplified and not complete enough to help an individual, but being complete and being simple is it takes a genius to coach that way, and that's what makes you good.
Well,
So when you're
I hung out with guys like you, so I picked up plenty of nuggets along the way.
we're always picking up nuggets, man. It never stops. I think that's what's fun about this job. You're always looking for better ways to say it, show it, have them feel it, and communicate. That's the key. Communicate. So when you're working with somebody, say you're talking tempo with them, would you use some references like, um, a clock? Do you like to use references of a player's walking rhythm to communicate their tempo? What are some ways you might talk about tempo with a student? Let's say they're a mid to high handicapper and they're not a musician. So what do you do to talk about their tempo?
I usually just let them. I establish the size of the stroke and set up the reference points for that. Of an idea that I borrowed from Don, actually, of if you had a baseline size of one grip back and through, figuring out how far the ball goes, and then over the years developed a very extensive protocol for being able to really create ownership of that, because there's so much that goes into it. But once you establish the size of stroke, then within that size, seeing, okay, what does excessively fast look like? Brant Snedeker on steroids. And
Mm-hmm.
then what does painfully slow, like molasses in January, look and feel like? And then finding that middle ground. I'd be doing a disservice to the player if I tried to dictate to them that their tempo needs to be at, throw a timing number out there of 2 to 1, let's say, for the cadence. trying to force somebody into that. Well, maybe that's not how they move it, but within the parameters of maybe that's a smidge too fast, maybe that's a smidge too slow, kind of help them find their own middle ground and not get too far to the ends of the spectrum. Because if you start moving it too slowly or too quickly, then you run into issues with the size where it's just not functional. So I like creating that exploration for the player and guiding that process, as opposed to saying, here's a metronome, here's something to attach to the butt of your putter, and look at your phone to tell you, did it move too fast or too slow? You need to be able to figure it out, because when you're on the fourth hole and you've already three putted twice, you don't get to pull out your metronome to figure out your tempo. You don't get to attach something to the putter to go figure it out. You need to have enough of an understanding of the pieces to solve the problem on your own. I think that's what's the beautiful part of somebody coming in for a session, is that we create an understanding of how the pieces work together, so that when they're on their own, they have a short checklist of things that are in their description simple, but the simple description compiled with the understanding opens up all the doors.
Yeah, that's good coaching right there. If you can get the player to just have a short list that they can go back to and make corrections as they play. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give this player some instruction that they can open up a little small list of things, 1, 2 things. If I just do these 2 things today, I'm going to putt better. And that's what we're trying to do, is orchestrate their checklist and boil it down to just a couple little small things they need to do. Fantastic, man. So tell me, you are you getting to play at all? I mean, as a player coach, you spend a lot of time coaching these days, but are you getting to hit your golf ball at all and play a little bit?
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point where if the number of rounds of golf exceed the months in the year that we're at so far, then I think I'm in pretty good shape on that front. A lot of my spare time though goes into trying to find a way to build the business and deliver the craft better. But there's nothing better than sneaking out at Twin with our group coaching clients. Just get in a quick 9 holes with them. It's an executive course. We have 8 par threes and 1 par 4 out there, and really a test of golf in the sense that if you hit a good tee shot, every hole out there is the equivalent of a regulation golf course with approaches from 70 to 170 yards. Stuff that, assuming you hit a good tee shot on a regulation size 18 hole golf course, this is what you're going to be left with. So it's still a true test of your skill set and your ability level once you've hit a good tee ball out there for, okay, what's next?
Right. Well, that's great. I think golfers need to appreciate that learning and training ground more. There were more golf courses like that. I think golfers would be better suited to play at all the golf courses in the world, and not just expect to go somewhere and boom a driver all the time.
Oh, of course. But there's that mindset shift that's like, oh, it's the par 3 course. I'm like, okay, well, get over it eventually, because there's a lot of benefit to that. And if you're so certain that you're too good for that, then you can come play me anytime, right?
Exactly. 100 a hole, man. Here we go. So I guess Don has the course record there, I'm guessing.
We redesigned the golf course some years ago. Haven't officially put out a course record of sorts. I would ballpark the number at probably 4 or 5 under for the 9 holes. It's a challenging little track there. If you're not paying attention, you find yourself 2 over after 4 pretty quickly. So, once we get the got some new mowers that have just come in, so we're going to be sharpening up the green side of things here, and really excited to get everything rolling smoother and faster now that he has full control of the property, and both the range, the teaching, and the core side of things, to deliver an experience that's going to be unlike any other. But again, once we get those greens up and rolling, there'll probably be a course record tournament of sorts, and for us to go have at it once a month and see how many birdies we can put up there.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, man. I look forward to seeing all the changes when you guys implement all that new stuff. So you're also involved with a group called the Course Kings. I know with Jeff Smith and some of the really talented instructors that he's assembled. He's brought you on board recently. Has that been exciting for you? And tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, it's fantastic. When Jeff Smith and I know each other from back in, oh boys, going back a long ways, 2013, I was working out in Kentucky, and I hosted Mario Bevilacqua, one of my mentors, and Jeff Smith to come out and run a short game school where they would did some wedge work. Dell fittings were something that Jeff was doing at the time. Mario taught some aim point and some short game strategies, and that was my first time meeting Radar Golf Pro. And since then, always hung out at events, grabbed dinners, chit chat. He was a great resource for me. Always happy to answer my phone calls and help a young 20-something trying to figure out some coaching ideas. When I saw the Course Kings platform started up, I said, wow, that's fantastic. As a putting guy, I'd love to be on there at some point. Never asked about it. And then the phone rang probably a few months into it where he said, hey, I like the message that you're delivering with the putting side of things. Would love to have you on board and provide an opportunity for you to share information to a loyal and dedicated market of golfers that are looking to pursue better, to pursue excellence. And I jumped at the opportunity for that because it was that captive audience for me to share some of the more detailed information that I maybe allude to on Instagram or a putting story on Instagram that might share just a little bit of insight as to what happens in the studio, but maybe a few more nuggets, the extended version of those on that platform, or better, more complete messages about the skill set side of things. For here's what we're looking at for the baseline information and the skills and deeper sense, as opposed to just the size and tempo chat. And it's like, hey, let's get a little bit more into the acceleration, the delivered loft, the smash factors, the ball speed stuff that we would like to know a little bit more about. So having an opportunity to be on that platform with a group of truly exceptional tour coaches is just awesome for me to be a part of. Great honor, and looking forward to just continuing to encourage more people to jump on there to get a membership and see what's out there on the information side of things.
Oh yeah, it's quite a group of instructors that he's assembled, and it's really a good find that he brought you on board. I'm sure that's a no-brainer for him. He's a great putting instructor himself, and for him to bring you on board, that says volumes of what you're doing. And I know I have TJ Yaten. He's now kind of a new instructor. Along with that, I'll have TJ on a show next week. We have plans, so I'm looking forward to chatting with him about his new accomplishment, getting on board with that as well. So
Oh yeah,
kudos to you guys.
TJ's great. I first met TJ back in 2011. He and Mario hosted my first aim point class that I attended down in South Florida when I was snuck down there for a winter. And boy, for somebody that was always a good putter, opening my eyes to a systematic approach for green reading was truly incredible. And back then we were still doing zero break lines for just some exposure to it in that setting, since we had all coaches there, and then learning the midpoint system using the chart just really opened my eyes to, wow, there's something here. And that actually kind of launched the foray into the putting coaching side of things, where I said, if I could show somebody where to hit it, that'd be pretty cool. And a few years later, got aim point certified, and then wanted to show somebody how to hit it to that spot more often. So I bought Sam Putt Lab, and boy, that tech left me with more questions than answers, because it was what the putter was doing. Needed to know way more about how the body was structured in order to do that. And TJ introduced me to David Orr, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I knew that was a long-seated relationship that had started much earlier. And even you and I go back a bit with teaching aim point together. We went to Pinehurst together, you and I, there at Pinehurst number 7, and did aim point express clinic with a group of folks. I'll never forget, there was a kind of a rainy day, and they thought, oh no, the rain's going to get us, and they put tents up over the putting green. First time I'd ever seen that. They did that for us so we could teach the clinics there. It was fun day. Well, I tell you, my friend, we go back a long way, and we got a lot more to look forward to. You and I talking golf. Where is our industry headed? In your own opinion, give us an industry forecast, if you will. Where is the game of golf headed? What do you see happening in the game? It's unprecedented times right now, so we're not really watching golf on television. We don't see any tournaments week to week, and kind of a peculiar situation we're in now. But what do you see happening over the next year, over the next 5 years? Give us Preston Combs' forecast for the game.
Oof, boy, that's a loaded question. Let's see. Forecast for the golf coaching industry. There's going to be my prediction is that there's going to be a recognition that you're going to get information at a very different level from people who specialize in certain areas. And I think that your more competitive players are starting to recognize that I'm going to want a team around me or a network of resources for different parts of my game. I think the club golfer is going to hold their instructor that they see on a day-to-day basis to a higher standard of information because it's more and more prevalent. And I think we're going to see a massive shift over the next 5 years or so of that old school tip of pick anything, pick any conventional wisdom tip about hitting down on it to make it go up or things like that. It's going to be a lot of that stuff. I think is going to fall to the wayside here pretty quickly, and those instructors that either specialize or that teach all facets of the game but care to stay on the cutting edge like yourself in different areas really are going to be the ones that succeed, and there's going to be more accountability, right? My recent session was just talking about how I'm utilizing the technology, and while we weren't super hands-on with it, I kind of looked at a couple of things and was able to show somebody, okay, here we are with X, Y, or Z issue, and then was able to work through some of the changes, but then demonstrate here's the tangible proof of improvement, here's the data. The technology is good for the player to be able to see their progress, but you better believe that holds me accountable, right? Because if I say, hey, we're going to do something, it's going to change this piece here, and it doesn't work, I need to find another way quickly. Or if it does work, it's nice to know that, the information that I provided didn't have any unintended consequences.
That's right. Yeah, you can't tell a player they're better and then they just believe you. You have to measure it and show the improvements in some form or fashion, and that technology can be that measuring tool that puts it into a proof, for the individual. That's the
Totally.
key.
So I think we're going to see things head in that direction. The world of social media and the internet's only going to improve. The recent COVID-19 crisis is going to really give people that are dedicated players the time to start looking around for additional information and resources and really hone in on, okay, if I want to improve, who am I going to listen to? And I think everybody's that's at that level is going to start listening a little more carefully. It won't be just taking information from every magazine and YouTube video in order to try to fix their golf game.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking to your point, I know I gave a 1 hour golf lesson to a gentleman yesterday. He's about 67 years old. I'd never met him. It was just a 1 hour lesson. And the three things that I mentioned to him that were the focuses of his lesson yesterday, he said no one had ever said any of those things to him as a golfer. The three things that we focused on, he said, I've never heard that from anyone. And it was kind of telling to me, as you said, golfers are given bad information every day, and they're holding on to these concepts in their head as if this is what I need to do, and if it's wrong, or if it's certainly not a priority for that individual, they're not going to progress. And that's what I see every time I give a lesson. Wow,
100%.
you were told to do what? Or you've never heard to do that? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Say, as the putting guy here, and I'm not usually too concerned about anything where the club head goes above the kneecaps or anything. What were the three things?
Well, I wasn't given a putting lesson. This was a full swing lesson.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Totally. I'm just curious. I still like to keep my finger on the pulse every now and again.
well, for this individual, hitting the ground with his golf club and the proper club to ground interaction that I was looking for, he had never heard the concept of low point. And so getting into his head about, well, why do you feel like you hit fat shots and why do you feel like you hit thin shots? What do you think is common among those mistakes that you make? And he was unaware that his lowest point in his swing was consistently behind the ball. And as most golfers experience that, they hit one fat, then they hit one thin. They're moving their low point. They're moving it up and down. They're just not understanding how to move it forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that perpetuates a lot of golfers' troubles. They don't understand landing the club properly in front of the golf ball just to make more solid strikes. So that was a big thing for him. He had a left knee replaced last fall. He's had 3 back surgeries. And when I first saw him positioning himself to the golf ball, he was standing very close to the ball, and he had this tremendous arch in his spine. And I thought, well, we're going to have to make some adjustments here because, number one, he's inclining himself to lose balance back towards his heels, and he's going to be inclined to raise up out of that because he can't turn in that position. So he had never been given any concepts at all about proper posturing and balancing of himself before he even started his swing. So we kind of worked on his positioning and adjusted his posture and how far away from the ball he was standing, and immediately made a much bigger turn and backswing as a result, and better balance and more solid contact. So that was something. He said, I never had anybody tell me, that. I said, well, what have you been told? He said, I've been told to keep my head down. I said, well, let's talk about that.
Let's have a good chat about that one. I love that one.
Wow. And so as a result of that idea, his body would not fully rotate at all into a finish. And so by keeping his head down, he was inhibiting his body from rotating, and therefore his arms would just collapse as he went through the ball, and that caused a lot of top shots. And he said, I've been told that I raise my head up all the time. I said, well, let's look at the video. And I showed him, drew a line on the top of his head, and his head didn't move up and down at all. His arms just, I said, are you lifting your head as you thought? He said, no, I don't guess I am. I said, well, see, you've been told something wrong. You weren't lifting your head. You were keeping your head down too long. And so that you deal with that. And I deal with that a lot with players. You've just been given the wrong information, the wrong advice. And believe me, you were doing what you were told to do. And it was making you a not so successful golfer. So that's what I see.
I think that's going to be a testament to what I was saying earlier about where's the golf instruction industry headed, and it's going to be to better information. But I think it's all of us collectively making sure that within our captive audience that we're delivering a very succinct message that's built on sound principle and structure in order to actually help create improvement for people. I mean, low point, Adam Young used to work out here with Don and I, and I mean, talk about a guy that's just absolutely brilliant. I mean, wrote the practice manual, probably one of the best golf books ever written. And in an effort to help people understand where the club hits the ground, where the ball hits the face, and where the club face is pointed are probably your most important things, and being able to develop that skill set, because mechanics can be so personal and individualized, and really taking that message and getting stuff like that out there to a bigger audience so that the stuff about keep your head down and keep your left arm straight dissipates. Those are pretty big instances right there where I think we're going to see that, the guys and gals that are in their 20s and 30s that are, amateur golfers that are taking lessons now, 20 years down the road, stuff like that will be kind of commonplace, where I go, yeah, I know the club needs to hit the ball in the ground, and here's some basic principles that help manage that low point. So definitely a big point there.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Preston, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you taking some time out to spend with us today, man. Our golf industry is in great hands in the leadership of young coaches like yourself who are doing great things, my friend. You just keep it up, and we're going to sit back and watch the greatness unfold in front of us as it already has. I enjoyed chatting with you today a lot, man. I hope to have you come back soon. Tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you, too.
Well, first, thanks so much, Alan, for having me on board. You've been a great friend and mentor of mine as I was coming up and in my 20s, from letting me crash at your house and look over your shoulder and learn a few things along the way. You've been just truly awesome and just a great part of the journey here. So it's some years down the road when I'm living in my own house and then you're coming out here to come visit, it'll be some great memories and a lot of that journey to share. So thanks so much for having me as a part of that and on here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, my friend. My pleasure. It's awesome to watch. So tell our listeners they need to reach out to find Preston Combs in Santa Barbara. How do they get in touch with you, and how can they communicate with you to say hello and get more information from you?
Yeah, absolutely. The website is www.prestonsputting.com. Great chance to jump on there. We've got the video page where you can get a look at some of the day-to-day side of things through the putting stories that I have posted up there. Probably most importantly, downloading the free ebook, 3 Things to Know, getting a copy of that to find out a little bit more about those skills that I mentioned, read, speed, and direction, and how that pertains to you and your putting, and having a better understanding of the breadth of putting components that would help people get better over the long haul there. If somebody's looking for some more regular interaction, checking out my Instagram page at Preston's Putting. And if you don't mind a little baseball talk, the same thing on Twitter at Preston's Putting as well. But email and direct message on Instagram, fastest ways to get a hold of me with time zones and busy lifestyles and coaching and things like that. But always happy to answer a couple of questions here and there and interact with everybody that's taken the time to support me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I hope my listeners do that, because if they don't, it's a disservice to themselves if they don't reach out to you and connect and get more information from you. Preston, it's been a pleasure, my friend. I look forward to seeing you down the road. And listeners, Preston is he's there for you, so reach out and touch base with him. He wants to help. You couldn't get better information when it comes to golf or putting than you can from Preston, so I hope you do that. This has been the Forecast. I'm your host, Allen Burton. I appreciate you joining us. And until next time, golfers, we want to say in these unprecedented times, stay safe, and look forward to seeing you on the golf course very soon.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.